I've been calling this series A Call of Wisdom. It's a series in the book of Proverbs, and I have told you on more than one occasion that the book of Proverbs is not one of these books with large doctrinal issues. It's not talking about the creation of the world, and it's not talking about who God is. It's not talking about the grace of God that is seen through Jesus. It's not talking about the forgiveness of sins that comes through the blood of Jesus. Rather, it's talking about how you and I are to live our daily lives, and apparently that is really important to God. How you and I choose to live every single day, how you and I acquire this abundant life is important to God. And there are two things about daily living that are, though, powerful Bible subjects. Neither of the two have I even come close to mastering. The two would be these two: love and trust. There's no question in the New Testament, is there, that love is an absolute command? And we are told in the New Testament about the behaviors of love. And sometimes I have difficulty even applying the behaviors of love to those I really love in this life. And then it gets worse when I try sometimes to apply the behaviors of love to people I don't really even like. And it gets even worse when I try to apply the behaviors of love to people who don't like me and call me their enemies. And so I find this daily living biblical principle so difficult, and just as difficult is this word trust. And yet in chapter 3 of the book of Proverbs, there is this little tiny passage that may be the most remembered passage of all the book of Proverbs. And I want us to read it out of the New International Version. Then we'll turn around and read it out of the easy to read version to make sure you kind of understand what this passage is saying. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. That's the NIV. Now this one. Trust in the Lord completely, and don't depend on your own knowledge. With every step you take, think about what he wants, and he will help you go the right way. So I find myself wondering if you are like me this morning and if you have this problem with trust issues. Do you have this problem with trust issues? What God is asking is that I would go through this life putting my trust and my confidence in him in those big moments of life. And I know that it adds to the quality of life because without trust, here are the byproducts. If I don't trust, I get fearful in this life. And fear so easily takes over any of our lives, and fear will paralyze you. It will paralyze you in every possible way. And fear leads to worry, and worry is anxiety, and you have no joy. I mean, you just go through life and you don't have this joy you're supposed to have. And whatever caused all the fear and worry and anxiety and lack of joy is still there, and you have this turmoil feeling. Like you just can't get an answer. You can't find a direction. Do all of you know what I'm talking about? Because here's what God's really asking. God's asking for us to trust beyond reason. Now, our minds are very, very powerful. In fact, scientists have studied the human mind for years and years and years, and they still cannot completely figure it out. Your mind has the ability to take in all kinds of data. Massive amounts of data can come into your mind. And your mind can tie that data together with past experiences, and you can compute all that together in the mind instantaneously, and you can form some decision based upon your logic. And you can move this way or that way based on all this data and all these past experiences. And it's a beautiful, wonderful thing that we employ hundreds and hundreds of times every single day. It's powerful. But sometimes the data, combined with past experiences, puts me in a position of knowing that what I'm into is near the point, if not at the point, of being impossible. Now, everybody understand that? All the data I collect, all my past experiences tie together, and they process so quickly, and I think, what am I going to do with this mess? What direction can I turn? Is there even a direction left? Do you have those times? And God says, what did he say? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. And don't lean on your own understanding, your own knowledge, your own reason, your own mind. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. So a couple of weeks ago, I ran across this phrase. I heard this phrase used. And it's a phrase that I hope will kind of lock into your thinking this morning and for days and days and weeks and months and years to come. Now, we worked on one of those phrases this last summer. We were in the book of Judges. And I said, think about this phrase, live like you believe. I think I've noticed the last two times, Dorin's not here today, but the last two times Dorin has led us in prayer, have you noticed that he's asked God to help us live like we believe? Well, here's the phrase I want you to think about this morning. The Red Sea moment in your life, or Red Sea moments. It is so lodged into my thinking, I think about the statement over and over again. Red Sea moments. And yes, I'm going to go back to Exodus chapter 14 with you. And you're probably thinking, why? I know it backwards and forwards. My guess is this morning you'll see something you haven't seen before. Or maybe you've forgotten about it. Moses is an unusually special character of the Old Testament. So much so that in the book of Revelation, I find it interesting around the throne of God that they are singing the song of Moses and the Lamb. And it almost seems like Moses is the counterpart in the Old Testament to Jesus in the New Testament. Red Sea moments. My guess is that one of you in this audience or more may be in one of those moments right now. And if we are not, we will be soon. It's the way life works. So return to Exodus chapter 14 and begin with me in verse 5. You know that by now, the people of Israel, the Hebrew people, have been released from the bondage that they've known every single day of their lives, and so have their fathers, and so have their grandfathers, and beyond. And they have left Egypt in a state of joy. And their arms are full of everything they can carry because they are taking valuable things and wonderful things out of Egypt with them. Happy time of celebration. But quickly in their journey, they end up at this Red Sea for a Red Sea moment. So it begins like this. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them. They decided letting them go was not the best idea. They changed their minds and they said, "What have we done? We have let the Israelites go and we've lost their services." Now, you and I have done the same thing on far less things. We have made a decision, we have moved forward, and then we look back and we say, what in the world have we just done? We have really messed up. That was a giant mistake. Who's going to make our bricks? And so, he had his chariot made ready and took his army with him. Now, it's probably not just that they can't make the bricks anymore, but they're probably still reeling from 10 plagues that have reaped havoc. And the last of the 10 plagues was the one that was so brutal, because before their very eyes, they saw the firstborn of everything fall dead. And so he took 600 of his best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt, and with officers over all them. It's a pretty big deal. This is not a small little band of soldiers. This is the big deal. Pharaoh's going after a massive amount of people. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites who were marching out boldly. They're marching out with joy. Remember that? I just said that. They're marching out with all this joy and all this happiness, their arms loaded with all the goods of Egypt, and now all of a sudden, here comes Pharaoh. And he comes at a really bad time. Watch this. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, the horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites, overtook them as they were camped by the sea near whatever those words say. You just make up what you want for those words, and I'll be confident it's okay. They're just by the sea. Rhett, you know what those words are? If you do, you can come here and tell us, okay? As Pharaoh approached, the 8 Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. And they were terrified, and they cried out to the Lord. Now, before I read this next, why were they so terrified? Well, they're no match for Pharaoh. And Pharaoh's not bringing a small band. He's bringing this massive army. And they're camped near the what? The sea. And so there's no place to turn. There's no place to go. There's no place to hide. They're backed up in this situation, and here comes Pharaoh, and what are we going to do? So in that moment, your mind starts what? Collecting all the data. How strong is Pharaoh? And on his good days, he was ruthless. On his bad days, he was what? Unbearable. The whip of Pharaoh was a mighty whip. And he's even bringing his best chariots. He's bringing a massive amount of military personnel. And we're helpless out here. And he's angry. And they begin to speak to Moses. Was it because there were no graves in Egypt? Now that's a brutal statement. That's an ugly statement. That's like saying, in Egypt, we died natural deaths. In Egypt, we weren't being killed. If we didn't do our work, we might feel the whip once in a while, but in Egypt, it wasn't a mass killing like it's about to happen here. Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you brought us out here in the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? This is all your fault, Moses. Now, you be really careful with this, because when you get at a Red Sea moment and you collect all the data, you tie together all the past experiences, and it says, I am in a mess, and I have no direction to go, and I have no way out. Sometimes your emotions go many different directions, and you're looking for someone to blame. You're looking for someone against whom you might vent your anger. You're all over the place. You're unstable. And so they're really tying into Moses in a bad way. They've done it before, by the way. Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone? Let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in this desert. And Moses answered the people. Now, these next two verses are some of my favorite all-time verses. I've used them over and over and over again. I've told these two verses to people who are executives at huge corporations like Albertsons Groceries and such as that. Moses stands before the people and says, don't be afraid. Don't let fear get you. You stand firm. Or one translation says, you stand still. Or another translation says, you be calm. Settle down. Now, by the way, has anybody ever told you that when you're full of fear? Anybody ever told you that your emotions are all, and they say, it's going to be okay? Just calm down. It'll all work out. But your data and your computer and your experiences are all coming together to say, it won't work that way. Don't tell me that. But he stands up so bravely and says, be calm. You will see the deliverance of the Lord this day. You're going to see what he will bring you today. The Egyptians will see you today, and you'll never see them again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. You need only to be calm. Now, I love that. I love the confidence of Moses. I love that he says, he's going to take care of this. You're not ever going to see these people again. This is the last day you'll ever see Pharaoh. But what I love is verse 15, the next verse. Even more, I love this verse. Because the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Don't you wish in Scripture, I've said this a score of times, don't you wish you knew what happened between verses 14 and 15? So often in the Bible, we have this one chapter and we have this other chapter, and it's all this space in between. You don't know what really happened. And you'd like to know. So I always picture it like this. Maybe I'm not picturing it correctly. But I almost always see Moses standing in front of the people and say, God's going to take care of this. You've got to be calmed down. And Pharaoh's going to be no more. God's going to save us. And then it's almost like Moses goes over here behind this bench and he crawls down the ground. God, what in the world are we going to do? What are you going to do? And God says, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Move on? Move where? He's coming, and we can't swim that far. How is this going to work? raise your staff, stretch your hand out over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through on dry ground. That will not compute. All the data you can bring together and all the past experiences, that one will not compute. That one will never make sense. Everybody got that? But he continues. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so they'll go in after them. They're going to blindly go between these walls of water or whatever they are, and they're going to go on that dry land. It's going to look like their chariots are going to make it all the way. Now listen to this next. And I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all of his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. I will gain glory. I will gain glory. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. A Red Sea moment. A Red Sea moment. When nothing computes. Nothing fits together. There is not an answer that's feasible, that makes sense. And you're in a mess. So now, do all of you know what I mean by a Red Sea moment? Do all of you know the experience of what it feels like at a Red Sea moment? I will now keep using that phrase over and over again because I'm there all too often. It feels like it's all too often, to me at least, that I just come to a point, I do not know a way out. Except that you make the way out. I was talking to a man in Tulsa. Actually, I texted him and said it's either this way or it's no way. We have no way out except that God makes it this way. We have no way out. His response was, you are correct. And I will begin to pray right now every day that God delivers a way out. Because it's a Red Sea moment. The answer to Red Sea moments is this answer. It's the only answer. It's trust. It's the only answer that works. If you don't do that, it's fear. If you don't do that, look at the Israelites. It's panic. If you don't do that, you scream against the people who have been helping you. If you don't do that, you stay in turmoil every day of your life. The answer to a Red Sea moment is trust. With all your heart. In spite of what your brain is calculating, it's trust. And you acknowledge him, and he will give you a straight way out of this. He will make your path straight. It all goes together. It's not separate. So what does that look like? From the story, it looks simply like this. And it is simple. You live like you believe. Even when it's the hardest time of your life to believe, you believe God is real. I still believe. And you talk to God about it. You don't talk against God. You don't talk against the people around you. You talk to God. I have no options. There is nowhere to turn except you provide a pathway forward. And then you expect God to work. So out of the so-called ashes of life, when I'm so in a mess, I've asked God, I believe God, I expect Him to do something. So just try to have a different composure then. I'm not always frantic. This may not fit, but I was riding with Mitch the other day, and he was talking about my dad, Steve's dad. One thing I kind of think about my dad is he liked Steve better than he did me. And I can't figure it out. I don't know why. But he said one thing about Papa was this. He was always the same. And he said cattle prices could go up or cattle prices could plummet. And you'd never know the difference. He said, I don't know how he did that. He was always the same. I'm not saying you always have to be the same. But there's got to be something in there when you get the Red Sea moment that you just don't fall apart completely and stay falling apart. Because you still believe God. You've talked to God, and now you expect God to work. And I think what my dad was, he just expected things to work out. I think he just always expected something would work out. On a much larger scale, we expect God to work it out for us. And then we give God the glory, and don't ever, ever forget that. Because at a Red Sea moment, it's never about you. And when you get the direction out, it's never about you being so smart, or you being so lucky, or you being so... It's always about God. Because your mind is already computed. It's impossible. Your mind has already put it together. There's no other option. And then the path is straight. You find a way out. Would you dare take credit for that? On the other side of the sea, when they looked back, and they saw the water tumbling in on top of Pharaoh, and they realized the world would never see Pharaoh again, nor would they ever see Pharaoh again. Do you think they thought, we were pretty good in that deal, weren't we? Or do you think they thought, wow, isn't God something? Didn't God take care of me? To God be the glory. Don't we sing something like that? To God be the glory? And I just wonder at Red Sea moments if God knows He's going to get the glory, if He wouldn't be prompted to work more. In fact, I told a small group this last week, 3 other people. I said, when God does this, how are we going to give Him the glory? What are we going to do so that everybody knows He gets the glory? What are we going to do? We didn't come to a final answer. But we said, when God does it, what are we going to do to make sure He gets the glory? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. It won't work. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. He will show you the way out. He will take care of you. That's how you and I have been called to live. And when you get over to the New Testament and you see Jesus alive on this earth, God in the flesh, you will encounter over and over again people at Red Sea moments. And they'll use their computers, and their computers are saying, no, it won't work. And Jesus will say, waters be still. Or he say, stop that casket from moving. Let me fix this. Or wait a minute, Let me look at your eyes again. I think I can help you see. He over and over again, he defies, because he comes to this earth to show us who God really is and what God acts like and what God works like. Am I saying that God's going to fix everything perfectly? No. I'm just saying he's always the answer. And it could be a health situation, and the answer is straight pathway to heaven. But Red Sea moments are our moments where God gets glorified and we get saved. We always get saved from our dilemma, and he gets glorified. So as we pause to take our communion, that Red Sea moment, Jesus translated over into real life and showed us over and over again people who were desperate, and he lifted them out. And Paul says in Romans chapter 8, he'll keep doing that for you. He'll keep doing that for you over and over again.